everybody, so I am here to show you how to seam together the 4 quadrants on your Quadrophenia blanket. So what I've got here is a little sample that I've knit up in DK weight yarn, just so that it's clearer for me to show you exactly what we're going to do. So the first thing that I like to do is just to deal with your ends in a certain way. So I've already done these 3 here, and I'll just show you what I mean by that with this piece that I've got. So the ends that you will have on each of your quadrants is you've got your tail end from where you finished the quadrant, you've got your cast on tail here in the centre, and then you've got your ends for where you've changed colour. And it's the ends where you've changed colour that I'm just going to do a little something with, and it just makes it a bit easier to seam the pieces together, and this just takes literally moments. So I've just got my tapestry needle, and when you look at the 2 ends here, you'll see that one is on top and one is down below here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the one that's on top, so it's above the other one, just pop that on my tapestry needle, and all I'm going to do is where this bottom one is coming out of that stitch there, can you see? I'm just going to thread this end through it. So basically they're going to come out of the same spot, and then take my needle off. So you can see now that I've got both ends coming out of that same leg of the stitch there. So I'll do the same with this other one up here. So again, we've got one on the bottom, one on the top. It's the one on the top that I'm just going to pop onto my needle and then thread through the little leg where the bottom one is coming out of, and then just give them a snug. So that just tidies up those ends, and I find just makes the seaming a little bit easier when you come to that transition point over the colours. So that's that dealt with. So do that on all 4 quadrants, and now I will bring in another triangles, aren't there? Bring in another triangle here. So what we're going to do now we're going to seam the pieces together in exactly the same way. So I will show you one here, and then you can go ahead and do all the other seams in exactly the same manner. So the first thing I'm going to do is just those ends that we've got there, just sort of tuck them underneath like that. I just find it gets them out of the way. And you've got that tail end up there for one of the pieces, that's fine. So take your tapestry needle. Now you're going to need some yarn to seam them together. And obviously we're seaming in all different colours on each of the pieces, but the seaming stitches won't show at all. So what I tend to do is just look at sort of the colours of this biggest piece here, which is the starting piece. That's the sort of biggest area, if you like. And go to your leftovers. You'll have a little bit left over of all of your yarns, and just pick the one that you think is closest to it. So I've got this little bit of leftover here, which was this yarn. That's the one I'm going to use. And then the amount that you're going to need, I always sort of pull off more than I'm going to need, but I've measured it out, and as long as you have about 3 times the length here, I find that you're probably only going to use about twice the length to seam it, but to err on the side of caution, I just measure 3 times. So that's 1, 2 and 3, and that will be plenty to seam together that side. Then move that out of the way. Okay, so we've got our length of yarn, so now just pop that onto your tapestry needle. So we'll start down. We're starting down here in the centre pieces. Now what you need to identify, if I pull the work apart down here, you need to find the first sort of eyelet here. Now because we knit through the back loop on the yarn overs, it's not a very large eyelet. I did that deliberately because then when we seam it together, I find that that works way better than having a full eyelet there. So all you need to do is find the very first one down here because if you remember, we cast on 3 stitches, so you'll have 3 stitches across, and then there's an eyelet there, and then there'll be one across here on the other side, and that's where we're going to begin the seaming. So go to this sort of right hand piece, find that first eyelet there, and I'm going to go down through there and then back up through the next one there. So we're mattress stitching these together. So what I'm going to do now, you can see I haven't connected them yet, but that's my first stitch effectively. Now leave yourself a little tail here to weave in, and then go across to your other piece here, and again find that first eyelet. It should be really easy to see. You just need to look at your cast on edge here, pull it apart, and then you'll see the first eyelet there, and do the same thing, so down through that eyelet and then up through the next one, and then give that a pull. Now nothing is all sort of loose at the minute, so don't pull tight at this stage. So now we can just begin mattress stitching just in the standard way that we do mattress stitch. So that's our first sort of connecting stitch here. So now I'm going to go back over to this right hand piece, and then I'm going to go back down out of the eyelet where we came up. So down and then up the next one, like that. And don't pull it tight again at this stage. Over to the other side, and again we're going down through that one where we came up before, and then up through the next one. And then when you've done a few of these, we can then pull it tight. So I'll do a few more, so down and up, across to the other side, down through that spot there and up. Now what you need to be sure when you're doing this is, I'll just bring in another piece and show you the back of it, just to explain what I'm going to say. So if we look at the back here, you can see that these strands here are our yarn overs. Now it looks slightly different on one side to the other. So on this side, these are the yarn overs, like I say, here and here and here, and on the other side they look more like part of the stitches. They're here, there and there and there. But when we are seaming, if I turn it back over and you open up your eyelet, we don't want to go behind. So you can see here's the yarn over here, and I'm actually putting my needle in front of the yarn over, so it's directly behind that one edge stitch, and it's the same on the other side, so it's directly behind the edge stitch, and then the yarn over is in the main part of the fabric. So back to our main piece. I'll do one more stitch on either side, and then we can just give that a little tighten up. So once you've done a few stitches like that, just keep hold of your tail end, and then we can sort of zip it up. So zip, 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 there we go. And you can see that tightens it all up, and it gives a really super neat finish. You don't see your joining yarn at all, your seaming yarn. And then I'll show you the back once we've finished the piece. So what this will mean is when you've seamed all of your pieces, you will have a gap in the center here, but there is a separate video to show you how we close up that gap. What I will do actually is I'll now work up to the point of the colour change, because that's where you just have to look a little bit closer. But what I do when I carry on seaming, when I've just sort of pulled it tight like that, is I just pull it apart a little bit, and then you can actually see where your last stitch was. I'm going to carry on now, like I say, up to that point of the colour change. I'll be back in 1 second, and I'll show you how to sort of bridge the colour change. Okay, I'm quite close to the top now. What I've done is I've worked my seam over this first join here, and I'm up to this one, because then what I can do is just show you right up to the very top. So you'll see I've done this first one, and the colours line up nicely here. If you follow that, where that one ends, and follow your line down, that one starts. So it's nice and lined up, and I'm almost to this next one. So I'll just work my way up to the top. So that end that we've got up here in there, I'm just tucking it round and underneath. So I'm just going to work up to that point, and it's really no different to what we're doing here. You just have to sort of look a little bit more closely because we've got loose yarns there. Okay, so we're right at that point now. So here are my ends, and like I said, I'm just grabbing those and tucking them behind like that. So here is where I need to go down, and then I'm just gonna, this is right on the point here of where my yarns are coming out. It's really no different. If you can see there, you can see here's my next eyelet where I'm coming up, and if you're ever not sure, you'll have two, can you see there's two strands of yarn there underneath my needle, and you know you're right because you've got two strands underneath your needle. If you only had one like that, you know that that's not right. You want to have two strands like that and be coming out of the next eyelet, and conversely, if you were here, you would know it was wrong because then you've got sort of three legs. But here we know we're right because there's two strands. So just take that through and over to the other side, which is just, the other side doesn't have ends, so that's just like normal. And then again down there, same thing. You want to go up through the next one. So this is the one where you sort of have to look a little bit. And there we go, it's right there. Let me just pull that apart and show you. Can you see right here? So down here and up through there, and your two strands here are they're a little bit more difficult to see, but there's one there and one there, but we know we're in the right spot. So under there, over the other side, and then now we're past that point now, so it's just carrying on. So what I'll do is I'll just zip that closed, and now we're almost to the top, look, and you can see we're exactly right because our two ends here are lining up beautifully. So just pull that apart again a little bit just to finish off and get to the top. Nearly there. That's to the top of that one, and then the last one over here. Okay, so just zip up that last bit. So now you can see that's our tails. Let's just move those down there. There we go. So now what we've got is our seaming yarn over here, and then your tail end over here. So just to finish this off really neatly, what I like to do is take my yarn over to the point where you can see this is the last sort of bound off stitch. So I'm going to go back down where I was on the other side. Let's just pull that apart. There you go, back down where I was, but then I'm going to come out right on that last bound off stitch right there. Oops, I've pulled my tail off my yarn, off my needle. There we go. And then the same on the other side, so down and then up and out of that very last stitch. And now when we pull that together, can you see, if I lay it down on the desk, can you see how we've got a lovely point to the corner, or what will be one of the corners of our blanket. So now what I tend to do is I'll just leave those ends for now, just there, and then you can now go ahead and seam all your other pieces in exactly the same way. I will just flip this over and show you the back so you know what that looks like. What you will have is a lovely join. Again, you can't see the joining yarn, you've just got that ridge running down the back, which I think is perfectly neat, and then we will deal with the ends in the final video. So you can now go ahead, seam all of your quadrants, and then I'll see you in the next video to close up that centre.